There you go.
All right, you want to talk Nakato at 62 points or Dan Hollins at 87 points?
Welcome to the Rugby Rant podcast show, your premier North American rugby podcast. Growing rugby, one fan at a time.
Welcome back, rugby fans. It's episode 111 here on the Rugby Rant podcast show. Joining me here today, we got Scott, the big guy Ferrari, and myself, in the absence of course, Rob, the Hammer Hammerschmidt, will be here taking on the important stuff in a moment with Around the Pitch. So let's take the opportunity to dive into it, Scott. We got Rob out the way. The first news is gone. So let's make sure that we highlight the important stuff. And as fans aren't sure what we're talking about, we call this Around the Pitch. It's a quick fire back and forth on this occasion between Scott and I as we bring it forth for you what we think is interesting, noteworthy, that might have flown under the radar, something that should be known about, and we're here to be able to share it with you in our news piece. So, Scott, I'm actually going to throw the ball to you, so to speak, on this first one. Take it away, buddy.
Speaking about throwing the ball, wide receiver coach for the New York Giants, Mike Groh, is using a rugby ball during drills. How did he get that rugby ball? Let me tell you a little story. Rugby New York's Pago Heine outside tossing the ball around with a bunch of the guys. A Scottish dude shows up. They start talking about rugby. They find out it's the Giants punter, Jamie Gillan, the Scottish Hammer. Pago gives him a ball, gives him a couple balls. Jamie, in turn, gives them some tickets. And now the New York Giants wide receivers are using a rugby ball during drills. What they're learning to do and what they're trying to do and what they're hunting to do is getting their hands as wide as possible using the big rugby ball. So that way their fingertips are as wide as possible to get that little football. That's how we're making rugby mainstream. Pago Heine, President 2024.
I love the setup too. By the way, folks, that was not planned when I'm like, let me throw you the ball. On that note, talking about throwing balls, it's like we rehearse this shit, but it's just all natural. All right, so let me take the opportunity to dive into the next piece and we turn our attention back to the Falcons as they've now finished their attempt at a two-match series down in Uruguay, and then the other half, so it was kind of a split for fans who aren't aware from tradition that normally the Falcons side would have gone and toured somewhere. This time they actually had two squads. One went to Uruguay, one went to South Africa. This last weekend, they finally finished their two-match series in South Africa, taking on the Airlink Pumas, who, by the way, are the current Currie Cup champions. That's a first Premier Division local rugby tournament, the oldest one in the world, by the way. And they managed to be able to take them on Toyota Stadium. The scoreline was not in their favor, but it was thrilling rugby, a lot of great lessons, some great names like Augsburger. You've got these guys that are, of course, are still shining at that level and will continue to shine, but bringing in the younger talent. Scoreline was 33-15. And then down south, taking on the Argentinian 15, who are a formidable force. That was the other side for the Falcons. And the scoreline there was 81-21. Certainly not flattering, but this is more of a case of win or learn. So this is really to be able to kind of vet the next generation. You got two solid sides that competed against professional teams and came away with a lot to learn. And that's what was most important as we look ahead to the next generation for USA. Scott, what else have you got?
I'm sticking with my theme of New York real quick. Let's talk about what's happening with Andy Ellis these next 2 weeks. Andy Ellis, of course, coming off winning the Shield with Rugby New York. It was just announced today being Monday, the 24th, that he will be a rugby advisor for the Kobe Steelers, a team in which he played for. And speaking with him, in the past, he loved playing for that team. He still loves that organization. If you go check out their Insta stories, you can just see the excitement in his eyes. And the reason why it's also interesting is a former MLR player. The player, I think he was second in all points in 2022. Bowden Waka is on that squad. So you have Bowden Waka and Andy Ellis teaming up. A Free Jack and a Rooster teaming up. I think the world's gonna end somewhere. Philip Harris, his head's exploding, baby.
Forget the Middle East crisis. This is the one that you can't solve.
This is crazy. But no, right. It's good to see guys going to places where they love to play and having those MLR roots.
Yeah, isn't it great to be able to see how players from this side or those come from overseas coming here, then taking that back there, talking probably very well about their experiences here. We know Andy Ellis has certainly enjoyed his time in New York. And of course, what a journey it has been for all the others. We hope to be able to see more apply their trade overseas because they are the ambassadors of the North American rugby, whether they have been here just playing here or are residents here or whatever it may be. But let's turn our attention to the next piece. Turning the topic to something else that I know you normally talk about, Scott, and you certainly are a champion of this, is wheelchair rugby. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, the World Championships was recently hosted this past through this October window. And this is coming off the back of a pretty successful Tokyo campaign for the Olympics for the USA side in the US wheelchair rugby. They got silver on that occasion, losing out narrowly, of course, in the final matchup. But this set them up on their way to get there against Australia. And now this time around in the World Championships, they ended up taking on Australia again. So it was kind of a little bit of a grudge match. My point is they managed to come away again with their second silver medal at top flight competition in less than a year. So it is certainly great to be able to see this. If you've not yet seen it, check it out. It can be seen on many great platforms, and you'll continue to be able to hear us talk about it whenever it is relevant. And do yourself a favor as a rugby fan, enjoy every version of the game that you can possibly get. And on that note, Scott, that is Around the Pitch. And we will be back in a few moments as we introduce Karen the Gasbarino for our rant as we talk about the USA versus Canada women's rugby campaign.
Tighthead Brewing Company is not just Chicago's premier location to watch rugby and enjoy quality ales and lagers. It is also a great place to enjoy local acts performing live music every Thursday and Saturday nights. Additionally, their Wednesday night trivia nights are something not to be missed. Tighthead is located in Mundelein, Illinois, and easily accessible for many Chicagoans, as it is just steps away from the metro. Owner Bruce Durr and the Tighthead staff are dedicated to ensure your microbrew experience is as tight as their beers. Bruce's love for rugby extends beyond the origin of his brewery's name. Tighthead is committed to supporting the rugby community. This includes his support for Lake County RFC and our own Rugby Rant podcast show. Tighthead's tap room is like the familiar rugby clubhouse in which friends and teammates can meet, socialize, and enjoy the wide variety of brews on tap. Regardless of whether your palate enjoys a good IPA or a dark barrel-aged brew, Tighthead can deliver. Hey, Chicago, when you want rugby, Tighthead Brewing Company will satisfy your thirst. Tighthead, it's worth more than a try.
Welcome back, rugby fans. It's that time again where we put ourselves and our guests to the test in our rugby debate, known as the Rants, which you have come to love, and we certainly have come to love it as well as one of our features of each and every episode. And as is tradition, we need to take a moment to be able to introduce those that are here with us. You, of course, know Scott Farrar, myself, Ty Braga, but more importantly, who is representing Canada in this conversation. We welcome back the Gasbarino. Welcome. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you. And for folks who don't yet know what Karen does in rugby, the answer is everything. But more importantly, not only is she a super fan for the Toronto Arrows, she's a contributor to the rugby community by way of the Rugby Hive. You may have read many of her great articles in support of that fantastic podcast with Dallin and Co. And we welcome you here on the mic this time to be able to take on Scott Ferrara, the big guy himself. So it's kind of is this an unofficial Rugby Hive versus Rugby Rant challenge that we've been praying for a year and a half? No, I'm only teasing. Just starting to sweat there.
Right on.
I like it. So before we dive into it, guys, it's best that we remind our viewers, how does this work? So with the Rugby Rants, it's pretty much familiar to most of you, but if you're not sure what we do, it's an opportunity to be able to debate one single topic. And we're going to ask them to be able to compete against one another, to be able to bring forth the best thoughts possible, to be able to state their case. And at the end, I'll be the one to decide who has brought forth the best points and deserves the honors on this episode 111, 111 digits, right? So we want to make sure that you understand what we're talking about. This is going to be looking into the continuation of week 3 for the Women's Rugby World Cup, of course, taking place in New Zealand. Most recently, it was Canada versus the USA in this final Group B matchup. Now, Canada, of course, went in as the favorites, choosing to be, or most people chose them, I should say, as the number 1 seed. They have, of course, been cemented as that after this match with a winning scoreline. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But we're here to debate, how did it go? And now that they have the opportunity to meet each other again, this time in the quarterfinals, what do they need to do this next time around to be able to secure the points and with it, the advancement into later stages for the Rugby World Cup? We're going to hand it over, as is tradition, to our guest to be the first ranter. So Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I got to open by saying that Canada's so proud of the women. They've done such an amazing job. They're consistent. They've been consistent for probably the last decade plus. Like, we have high expectations of them, but they always deliver. So we're super, super happy with the team in general. Then Arue is doing a great job taking over and has gotten right in there. He seems to have the respect of the team, which is of utmost importance. So that is one plus in the plus column. Of course, the games have, even though Canada hasn't lost a match, the games have been a little bit close, and their second halves have maybe a few handling errors, some sloppy hands, something that I'm sure that they would be spending this week working on, especially since they have to face their, Chiefs and Saracens teammates yet again. And your team will be hungry. I know they will. They will want that back so bad, and that would be the upset of the tournament. If the USA puts Canada to bed, that would genuinely be the upset of the tournament. So that will make Canada very nervous, and that will make the USA very hungry. A lot of respect back and forth for these two teams. The battle of the 49th, but they're both going to really, really. I'm so nervous myself. You can probably tell. Like, I just don't know. And I don't even think I'm going to get any sleep whatsoever, because I will be so full of adrenaline by the time it's over, late at night for us. Anyway, for us, the pluses. Okay, so Captain Sophie has proven time and again in every place that she plays that she is the class. And
I know, talk about talent. We were talking about this last week, and I'm sorry to derail you for a moment, but Sophie de Goody, who has previously been on our show, so we'll call her a friend to the show, at 8, and also the kicking duties as well. She's a leader from the front. She puts in the hard yards. Certainly has been one of the stars of the Canadian effort so far. So we definitely agree there.
I would argue she's the best 8 in the world, but I mean, I think that there's some evidence to back that, and she's definitely the best 8 in the world. But the best 8 with a boot, like that's just icing on top. So, Corrigan, fast, aware, she's a great outside center. Her player of the match was well deserved. Emily Tutusi in her debut World Cup duties, like, she's leading the pack with
and what is she racked up? 6 tries so far in 3 games? What is going into the 4th game? I mean, she might be one of the top try scorers so far.
She is one of the top try scorers. So yeah, it was definitely. And then my personal favorite is Karen Paquin. I love Karen Paquin. She's amazing. So
yeah. a lot of great names that you're throwing out there, and they're all wonderful, because not only is it like these players, as you pointed out, have an opportunity to be able to play together on the field, but also with the US. So it's great to be able to see how these two sides have developed, and these players, having gone overseas, have just like taken it up a whole new level from last season. There were a couple of great games building up. We think that Canada probably had a better momentum than the US going into this current World Cup, having had some really strong competition, some fairly decent results. But you can see they refined those combinations. I do like the introduction of Corrigan. I think this might have been her first starting match of the tournament so far. But she's a powerful, strong runner. She hits it straight. She cuts to the line breaks. She's really strong with the ball. And I think that's what a lot of people are taking away right now from the performances so far for Canada, is that offensively they can have these brilliant moments of magic, but with those simplistic errors being removed from the game, the scoreline should be much higher than they actually are. So you kind of feel like they've got another gear to be able to hit still, right?
Well, I want them to hit it. I think we all do. I think they letting the foot off the gas in the second half, where the opposition can sneak in and push their offense, really puts Canada on the back foot. And the U.S. was starting to show glimmers of getting it, like they were getting Canada's game, and I don't want them to be able to capitalize on those handling errors and capitalize on the fact that Canada might gas out at 60 minutes. So Canada will be working on that kind of that fourth quarter, if you will, and making sure that they can keep in it and keep the hands clean.
Yeah,
So.
It's interesting that you say that, like, Canada for you feels like they play a really great 60-minute game, but of course we all know it's an 80-minute game. So that last 20 is that area, the greatest area of improvement. Words from Rob Kane recently for the US side. He wanted to be able to say his post-match comments after the match for the USA thoughts was he wanted to prove that the USA is not a 30-minute winning side, meaning they only have 30 minutes of great rugby, and then 15 minutes is lackluster after that. With that note, I think it's a perfect opportunity to hand it over to you, Scott, to be able to speak the words for the US.
Yeah, I think that's a good quote, and I think that's one of the things that every rugby team wants, right? Is a complete 80-minute perfect game. I think that's what every coach wants, what every player wants. It is achievable at certain points. We've seen classic matches where both teams have played 80 minutes and into extra time and played great rugby. But here's the thing: Team USA did play really good rugby in the first half. It just didn't work out for them on the scoring side. We're talking about 3 tries to 1 in the first half, and really. You talked about friend of the show, Sophie DeGoody. She hit a friggin' conversion right at halftime from like a really tough angle that I went, ooh, that felt like a dagger, right? Here's the thing. Play resumes at halftime and US comes out and starts punching the Canadians in the mouth. And at that point, Canada started to build those errors and have those handling errors and have those issues. And we started to see some movement. Now,
I don't think there was another scoring opportunity until the 60th minute for Canada, right?
Correct, and it was right after Tess Fury put one over the line, but on a review it was determined there was an obstruction on a defender. That happens. I think if that doesn't happen in USA, if that score is upheld, I don't know if the Canadians then come back and have their ball.
It could have changed the momentum of the game.
Yeah, so I think it just that one little thing, minor issue killed them. Alev Kelter, let's be honest, she single-handedly was just, what do you say? You can't say anything more about her. Her first try, it was to set up the scene. There was a flick one-handed behind the back pass, 2 or 3 offloads, gets it to Alev Kelter, and she shrugged off 3 Canadian defenders to then score.
Talk about the power, right? That she had strong on her feet.
Exactly. And then you talk about, Sophie DeGoody kicking conversions. Alev Kelter kicked her own conversion on that particular one. Real quick, Tatasi is the leading try scorer. and she's also the leading point scorer at 30. And Lev Kelter is right there behind her with 24 points, like 2 or 3 below her.
Yeah, shout out for the forwards, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's here's the thing. That second half by the USA was great. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the scoring opportunities weren't there. What I liked was they didn't stop at halftime and like take their foot off the gas or try a different tactic. They know coming in that they can just punch and punch and punch and punch and punch, and eventually Canada's going to make mistakes. And it's not just Canada; it's every team is going to do that if you keep punching them in the mouth. I like the way that the roster was set up. I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago when we were saying, Kelter at fullback is great if you really think it's going to be a super tight match, but you really want her at center so she can go forward and make those plays where she's
right. And look at the impact she made.
Absolutely. The other thing I do want to talk about Canada a little bit. One of the women that I've been following closely, she just started coming up on the squad, Tyson Bukaboom. She came on at halftime and really did while USA was pounding and pounding and pounding. She really did work at the breakdown. You love to see that out of your big long locks. Couldn't get as many jackals as she would like, but again, she did one of those smart things where she was just trying to counter ruck at certain times to blow off the scrum half, making outlet passes and things like that.
Very patient.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't coming in recklessly. It was coming in measured, and playing it and saying, all right, I'm going to come in. Is this going to make a difference? No, let me get down the defensive line. She was kind of copying herself on that too. So, yeah, I think going forward, come out with the same intensity against Canada. Let's not let them get 7 in a row. We have a good class of ladies here. They have just as much experience as the Canadians as far as professional experience out in the Premiership. They're all playing against each other. They're all playing with each other out there. And I think, we have the team to beat Canada. No offense, Karen. Like I told my buddy Doug Wilkie before the match, I said, listen, #ABC, right? Always beat Canada, but don't worry, Dougie, I'll love you tomorrow. Same thing. I love you after the match, Karen, but until then, it's ABC. Always beat Canada.
I like it. Strong words. And, I wanted to jump in there and just throw a few thoughts of my own. Both of you really brought up some great stuff, though. And I want to touch on some of the thoughts that Scott shared a moment ago. And I think most people would agree the second half defensive effort from the USA to be able to not let it run away immediately. I mean, I think going into the halftime, it was 19-7 up for Canada, of course. Now, typically, you're in a very dangerous position. What is the mentality of the players when they come back to the field? Is it going to be attack, or do we just try and absorb it for another 20 minutes? You pointed out, Karen, that sometimes the greatest advantage to be able to come back at Canada is if you can hold out in that first 20 minutes of the second half. Keep the score low, and you have a chance to come back into the game as their legs start to get tired. And I think that's what started to happen was we had a 10-point difference at one stage. It was 14-24 before those final points came in at the very end, pushing Canada up to 29. But it could have turned the other way if a few passes had gone the right way. For both sides, it could have been a very different scoreline. But I think the takeaways for the USA immediately is they need to continue improving their lineouts. Lineouts, I think, was only, I think they secured 11 of the 14, but that's not a significant number. It's the 3 that they missed were all in dangerous territory for Canada. And what I mean by that, there were scoring opportunities if the set plays had been handled correctly. And we all know with rugby, if you don't control the set play, you don't control your own set play, you're not setting up quality ball for any attacking line. And that's what shows in this game and some of the previous ones for the USA. So regardless who their competition would be, that's an improvement right there that they need to work on. On the other hand, Canada was flawless in their lineouts and setting up the rolling maul to be able to convert those points. So it was more of the same from them that we've seen all tournament long. Obviously, why would they go and change that now in this next game when they've got a winning formula and a great weapon at their disposal? The onus is really on the USA now. What are they going to do to improve that part of the game? And I think if they can properly defend that one really great tool that Canada has, the scoreline is not going to be as distant as this last one was. I think you might see a score that's going to be inside of 7 points between these two. One converted try might separate them or something lesser than. But I want to hear what do you guys think as we move forward and turn our attention to this quarterfinal matchup. And Karen, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I think that it's going to come down to a battle of nerves. I think that each team is going to try to get under the other skin, and they're both teams are very physical, very talented. Great athletic team. So it's not going to come down to the athleticism. I think it's going to be a mental game because
sure.
They're playing each other, second seed to seventh seed, and
right.
Canada has lots to play for.
There's a large psychological factor. And to your point, I just want to further the same point, though, and I think it's a really good one, because going into this match, before this last matchup, I should say, Canada had never beaten the U.S. 6 times in a row. They did so. That has to be a major psychological advantage. Now going into a quarterfinal, having been beaten from this team, looking for their 7th win in a row, 1 second seed, 1 7th seed, these are psychological factors that you obviously have to bear in mind as a professional athlete. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, you'll have the veterans, shoring it up as well, and getting the younger players the history lessons and just encouraging them to just keep plugging forward and getting that ball over the line. You've got Sarah, Karen, Laura's not playing, but she's still there. An immense amount of history with the oval ball there with Laura Russell. So. I think it's going to be the most exciting thing in a very long time.
I'm going to push you for a prediction here, Karen. What's the score going to be?
I think Canada's going to win it, but I think it is going to be a close game, but I think it'll be, I'm going to go Canada 33, the USA 25.
Okay, so you think it's going to be a fairly high-scoring affair, and that would be great for fans to be able to see, and it's not unlike what we've already seen from this World Cup, so there you have it. 33-25 is the prediction from Karen Gasbarino. Let's hand it over to Scott. What do you think?
It's funny because Karen just talked about the mind games and stuff like that, and the first thing I was going to say before, I was prepping for what I was going to talk about, and I was going to talk about the yellow card that Kate Zachary got at the 80th minute in the last match. And that was her saying, I'm not going to allow by any means while I'm on the field, Canada scoring another try. And to me, that's the kind of mindset you want. You want to be, mean. You want to be nasty within the rules.
Leave it all out on the field.
And not getting penalties for it, and obviously not, getting people injured for it. But you want to work that way. You want to walk the walk and talk the talk, and you want to be that mean, nasty person. And Kate Zachary, I thought, did that with that yellow card. I really like to see that she was like, not today. Canada ended up scoring when she left the field, but my point is she wasn't going to allow it. I do think you were right as far as the lineouts. We have to get our lineouts straightened out, but we proved that we can hold Canada when they're driving, right? So we've proved that even though they get into positions where they can score, we can hold them at certain points. It's just our end where we're getting held up, where we're having obstruction calls that are kind of where we're missing those points. So I think, again, just like Canada, we play the same game. We play our game. Right. But I need people like Hope Rogers and Charlie Jacoby to show up. Hope Rogers had amazing matches. The first 2 matches, she was kind of lost a little bit in the fray here. We need them to show up. I think the only thing we need to do really is on a counterattack. The few times Canada's going to kick the ball, we have to have a better counterattack and not kind of just sit there and sit flat-footed.
Right. And there were moments of brilliance in between where they kind of mixed up their attack approach, chip over the top and a chase provided a really close opportunity. But the stock standard go out wide and try to beat your outside runner is not going to work. They need to change the attacking lines. Canada had some really brilliant line breaks. So we would imagine to be able to see some struggles in the midfield there. It needs to be a little bit tighter on the U.S. defense there, I would say as well.
Absolutely. And if you're going to go outside, you have to set up with inside runs with your big forwards. And this is something that I scream. I mean, how many times do I have to say it on this goddamn show, Ty? The MLR coaches need to listen to the big guy. Run your A gap. No, run your friggin' A gaps. And guess what? Those wings are going to suck up into the breakdown. And all of a sudden you can make that pass to get that person run around the end.
Right.
But you have to set it up. You can't just do it all the time. You have to set it up different ways. So I think if we can do that, if we can make those little adjustments, we have a good shot at winning this game. 7 in a row. That would be a tough one if Canada wins. So I think it's one of those things that America loves an underdog. USA is coming in an underdog into this match. USA is coming in a little bit of a wounded animal, in my opinion, after losing to Canada 6 in a row.
Right. That could be the fire that they need, though.
Exactly. It's unpredictable, and, you never pet a burning dog, so Canada might be in trouble. I'm going to say USA 25, Canada 24.
All right. So we think it's going to be close all around. Did you just say never pet a burning dog?
And never pet a burning dog. You never
I have never heard that. I don't know. Karen, have you ever heard that saying before?
I want to say it's a strictly New York thing.
Yeah, I think that's a strictly thing.
That's a Southern thing. My boys down south say that. You see a dog and it's burning, you want to go over and pet it because it's cute, but you got to be careful.
Oh my God. All right. I learned something new every day. There's the quote of the day. Don't pet a burning dog. That's the USA. So it is going to be interesting to be able to see. We're going to leave it for fans to be able to tell us what they think. And we'll continue to be able to cover this week after week, as of course it is the theme of this month. The action has been unbelievable. We have set new attendance records for the women's game, which, by the way, is also going to go well beyond the efforts here in the Rugby World Cup down in New Zealand, because I believe that the English Roses have now been confirmed as having an opportunity to play in Twickenham itself, which is for the first time will be the feature. They're not going to be a footnote in a great day of rugby. They're going to be the reason everybody's there, and it's great to be able to see this sport elevated to new heights from all different directions, and it comes with your help as a viewer. So make sure that you keep tuning in onto Peacock to be able to check it out. Follow it online. You can follow us as we follow it online under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. You can get us on all our socials, and including checking us out on the familiar, the Rugby Network, week after week, where we continue to do what we do, is help rugby grow one fan at a time. Karen, you continue to be able to help us do that as well. So we wanted to be able to send a shout out to you. Thank you for joining us. But while we do that, we also wanted to hand the microphone back to you for a moment to send a shout out to anybody you think might deserve it. Perhaps a special person or an organization, an old club, whoever you think deserves it. The floor is yours.
Well, I've had the pleasure this past summer to represent the Canadian Classics in the communications side of things, and they're doing amazing work. It was the women, a resurgence of the women's side, and it was in Newfoundland, and they played the senior rock women's team and brought some opportunities to the rock as well, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. Such talented players represented, some of whom are down in New Zealand, and some of whom are going on to represent the rugby league as well. So just super great opportunity for me to do that. And as always, a shout to Dallin and Robin at the Hive, and Ben Gollings as well, who's involved with the Hive and just took his Flying Fijians to the World Cup and won. So so it's
much
great
to the dismay of every South African, though.
I know. Sorry.
All right, Karen's not allowed back.
It's a great time to be involved in rugby. Excited for the next season of MLR, and we'll see all of the politics that come along with that too.
Absolutely. You're certainly going to be, of course, supporting the Arrows through the MLR season. And I would not be surprised to be able to have you here to be able to talk about many of those matches upcoming, as we on the Rugby Rant will continue to be able to turn our attention to the MLR as the season comes closer. But of course, make sure that you follow us online to be able to get all the news and more with us each and every week. And again, thank you, Karen, for joining us. But more importantly, thank the fans at home and welcome. We will see you back in just a few moments